It had been a tumultuous year. My grandmother had passed away. I'd finished my master's in sociology, and my boyfriend and I moved to New Orleans for him to attend law school. I'd hoped to find an academic research position, but so far, no luck. So I found solace in two things I love: a great coffee house and card games. And that is how I met Newton. Slightly taller than me, Newton had a defined physique. His head was always freshly shaved, and along his left arm ran the word revolution. We ended up partners in a spades game. Together, we noticed how another one of the players was always cheating. But instead of busting him, we just enjoyed beating him even more. One evening, Newton and I decided to take in a movie. And as we headed to our seats, my phone rang. It was my mother calling me with tragic news. My aunt had committed suicide. I robotically turned and exited. Outside, I broke down sobbing. I felt Newton's hand on my back, and then he shared something equally as tragic. As members of a racist militia group, his parents and uncle all died in a murder-suicide pact. Everyone important to me, gone in an instant, Newton said, now crying also. Our arms intertwined, and we embraced not only each other, but also our collective sadness. And after that, we were inseparable. Newton helped me find a job. During undergrad, I'd learned how to weld. I always joked that welding was my fallback plan if academia didn't pan out. So Newton got me a job working on the same cash-paying construction crew he was on. And during breaks, we made up games. We liked trying to get the suits to turn around by saying outrageous things. I'd say, I figured out I can fit 7 quarters in my nostril. Newton would say, even drunk, I did not expect to wake up next to my sister. My favorite game, though, was an armored car heist. See, from the job site, we could see a bank and the armored cars that delivered there. And I've always been fascinated by perfectly executed crimes. So we watched and studied the drivers and the guards, theorizing the perfect heist. Just walk up to the side of the car and jump in, I strategized. No, you can't just jump in the car, Newton said. What about the keys, the partner? Chloroform, knock him out. And then, what, dump him while driving? If he dies, charges are up to murder. Okay, when he wakes up, we appeal to his sense of loyalty to his family, and he'll be thrilled when we drop him off, right? Newton laughed. 6 months after we met, Newton and his girlfriend broke up. Without money saved for a deposit, he had nowhere to go. And since my boyfriend and I had a spare room, we told him, come live with us. Turned out, Newton was the perfect roommate, meticulously clean. He cooked dinner, and he was never loud. Our dogs adored him. I'd come home from work, and they'd all be snuggled up on the couch together. One day, our neighbor's house was robbed. Worried, I decided I'd better hide some of the diamonds I'd inherited from my grandmother. I was strategically placing the jewelry in an empty Pringles can when Newton entered the kitchen. A chip can, he laughed. That's the first place they'll look. I'm gonna put it on the top of the cupboard, I explained. That's how they'll know who puts chips up there. Snatching the can from my hand, he headed down the hallway to the bathroom. He kneeled, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a box of tampons. What are you doing with those? I asked. In a break-in, nobody's gonna be messing with your tampons. He said as he was stuffing them into the box. And in that moment, I knew Newton was the smartest person I'd ever met. For the holidays, I invited Newton to fly to Utah to join my family. He said he had to work. A lie. and that he'd stay for the dogs. I begged, but he refused. During that year, we all rocked along in a state of bliss, until one night when I arrived home late from work, a mutual friend phoned. "Do you have today's paper?" he said frantically. No. "Go get one and call me back when you figure it out." I ran to the store, I grabbed a paper, and back at home, I flipped through the pages. There it was, a picture of Newton, wanted by the FBI for bank robbery. My whole world tilted to the side, and I felt like I might slip off. In a state of shock, I called our friend back. "Anything of his at your place?" he asked. "The FBI will be coming, they just left here." I bolted into Newton's room and I feverishly looked around, and not a shred of him remained. I frantically searched the house. Nothing. It was like he never lived there, never existed. I felt like I'd lost my best friend in an instant. I'd realized I'd been holding my breath as I darted around the house. My arms were shaking, my legs felt like they were about to give way, and I sank to the floor in tears. And everything clicked into place in one mad, rushing flood. He couldn't get an apartment because he couldn't have a background check. He couldn't fly to Utah because he couldn't get an ID. He worked a job for cash because he couldn't open a bank account. And he couldn't open a bank account because he'd robbed a bank. During the FBI interview, I learned his name was a lie, his age was a lie, his deceased family was a lie. Everything he said about where he came from was a lie. Was our entire friendship a lie too? And then I remembered the diamonds. And I ran to the bathroom and I flung open the cabinet door and I ripped that tampon box from under the shelf and I dug my hand inside. And when I felt the jewels and pulled them out, I realized they were all there. I hadn't lost diamonds or friendship. See, we all have pieces of ourselves that we don't share. And Newton chose not to share the facts of his life, but he did share the true qualities of himself. And our friendship was real. For a while, I thought Newton might get in touch, that in some clandestine meeting, he would divulge the details of his larceny. Never happened. Often, I would see someone in a crowd and think it was him. Rushing over, I'd look at their arm, only to find no tattoo. I later read on the internet that Newton was apprehended and went to prison. I considered writing him, but something stopped me. See, there didn't seem to be a reason or a need to reconnect. Our friendship was full and finished. And not all friendships need to last a lifetime. So in its own way, mine and Newton's was perfect.